Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our September 16th Medina City School Regular Board of Education meeting. If everyone will stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and roll call.
Mr. Eastwood.
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Thank you.
I can get a motion to approve. No. Yes, get a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting on August 26, 2019.
I'd make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 26, 2019.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Are there any additions, removals, or modifications to our consent agenda this evening?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Chambers.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
And now the superintendent communicate. Mr. Sable. Thank you.
Good evening. I wasn't going to do this tonight, but I can't help myself. I just want to say a few words about the state report card. I do anticipate that at our upcoming work session in October that our curriculum department will provide a little more detailed information to our Board of Education. But I think it's important to share with the community that over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, we have improved in almost every category on the state report card. And I do credit that to all of our staff, our teachers, our administrators. I include our classified staff in that. That's something I've preached since I've come here, that we are all educators. Because everything that everybody does impacts the type of education that our students are going to get. That doesn't mean that there aren't areas that we still want to and need to work on. And we do evaluate those areas as we're celebrating the successes that we're seeing moving forward. It's always important for me to point out, or I feel it is, that the state report card is just one measurement of our students' success. And when you look back at the history of state testing in Ohio, of the state report card, it's a messy history, especially the past 5 to 10 years. Where we were in a period of time where tests were being shifted and altered, kids were taking too many tests, tests were being used for the purpose of evaluating teachers, and it is my opinion that the state has become misguided in how they're using that data and trying to convert a student's academic experience into numbers or grades to share with the public is something that's really not very possible to do. And then you add to that where the media likes to take all those scores and rank districts. And those are not apple-to-apple comparisons. When you're talking about in Indian Hills, down in the Cincinnati area, which is one of the wealthiest and smaller districts in the state, and you compare that to a Cleveland Public, and the kind of challenges that they face in their communities, it's not a fair measure to just look at test scores. You really need to look beyond the test scores and see what the district and the community is doing together to ensure the achievement of our students. And I got to tell you, in Medina here, and I've been in other districts where this wasn't necessarily the case, but I think our community gets that. I can tell you, being here 3 years, that our feet are definitely held to the fire. Our community has high expectations for the progress of our students and the achievement of our students. And there's an understanding that it goes beyond just numbers. And I really encourage people to take a look at our quality profile. That's a document that we, along with other districts in the Alliance, which we've talked about in here before, show the other aspects in which we're working on student achievement. And that's not to say that we don't take any value in the state test scores. We do, but it's just one little piece. And if I'm going to look at how students are achieving or how a teacher is performing, I'm going to get into that classroom and I'm going to take a look at local assessments that are being utilized within that department to determine if our students' needs are being met. And I know that all sounds a little bit on the negative end, especially when we did so well on the state report card and are seeing the achievement. I just think when those types of things are released, we need to keep some perspective about what they really mean. And in terms of the community, the report cards were released last Thursday. Since then, I've received one piece of communication from a community member slash parent, and it was from a parent at Canavan, and they emailed me to basically say Medina is a great place and to share the outstanding experience she had with her child coming into the district and meeting their child's needs in the district and the type of growth they've seen since they've been a Medina child. So I shared that out with the administrators that impacted. I think it's important to keep some perspective. At the same time, we're more than happy to sit down with anybody and review any of the information within the report card. I can tell you that a lot of it is complex, like to the point you'll call ODE to ask them what the formula is, and literally I've had them tell me they don't know. So even in working through some of those numbers, I think good conversation to have is what those numbers really mean. But the big celebration is really the kind of progress that we've been making. And I want to thank everybody in our district, including this board, for all the hard work that you do that makes our students successful. And that leads right into the presentation this evening. And I love seeing our teachers and our students here. Looking at the kinds of things that we're trying to do in the district and part of our strategic planning process, we attended our first SOAR meeting last week. We were actually down in Columbus when the report cards were released. We're talking about a portrait of a graduate, and we're trying to really look at skills for our students to make them successful outside of the classroom. And we want to do it in a way that modernizes education. And I don't know if anybody's seen this, but one slide I've seen over and over is they show different advancements in various industries, medicine, attorneys' offices, and you see these drastic car manufacturers, you see these drastic changes, and you see a classroom, a one-school classroom, and you see a modern classroom, and other than the projector, they look pretty much the same with the desks in a row. And that's something that we're looking at changing because our students are heading into a very different world than what we all went into. And a great quote from the SOAR programming that we attended this past week was that schools need to get away from teaching kids the answers and start teaching them how to ask questions and find the answers to those questions. Because our kids literally have the questions in the palm of their hand, which is something we didn't have. My parents, for our students that are there, had a set of encyclopedias that I'd go reference, and if my teacher made me get extra sources outside of encyclopedia, I had to go to the library and use the card index. But the program that we're going to be presenting tonight fits right in those lines. When you're talking about having engaged, active learners that are problem solving, that are having to come up with the questions and the answers to those questions rather than being told to memorize. And I'm very appreciative to our teachers that are here because I've heard feedback that it's really been an exciting adventure working in this new class. And for those of you who are visiting, I'd encourage you to visit the crime scene on your way out over by the hub because it's pretty cool. With no further ado, I want to turn it over to our high school. Yes, it is a fake crime scene.
Yes, we've had a few questions. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present some of the wonderful things going on at the high school. And I'm not going to steal any of their thunder to talk about our new course, but what I wanted to do is I just wanted to thank the two teachers that are here tonight, Dr. Brantner and Mrs. Medlock. They're two of our most outstanding teachers at Medina High School, but they gave up a lot of their time this summer, spending 2 weeks in the crash course on learning all the skills necessary to make this successful. So without their hard work, we wouldn't be able to provide such a high quality product. So you're going to get to see not only some of our best and brightest students, but some of our very best and bright staff members. So thanks for everything they've done.
And I'm a lot shorter. All right, evening everybody. Thanks for having us. I'm Mrs. Medlock and this is Dr. Brantner. We, like Mr. Harrison said, are the new teachers for our first Project Lead the Way course at the high school, which is Principles of Biomedical Science. We had the opportunity this summer to go to Indianapolis and we did a 2-week crash course where we got to actually run through all the labs as fast as possible that you could in 2 weeks for an entire year's curriculum. And what's awesome about it is we got to bring it back, and we have 88 kids within our classes and they have basically eaten it up. They absolutely love it. So we want to spend some time just kind of going over a little outline about what our course is. Project Lead the Way, our current course, PBS, is in collaboration with Medina County Career Center and with us, obviously, working at the high school. It is an introductory course to the Project Lead the Way program for biomedical sciences. It's the first of 4 that we could possibly bring. It is an elective, and currently it's only open up to freshmen and sophomores.
So one of the things Mr. Harrison brought up, and I know Mr. Sable did too, is we're trying to introduce kids to real-world applications while also trying to get them ready with different career tech skills. And realistically, just real-world life skills that'll also help them. So some of the concepts that students explore in this class include everything from biology to medicine to determine factors that potentially led to the fictional death of our individual who's presently at our fake crime scene. So students examine autopsy reports almost as a medical examiner. They investigate medical history, and they also explore various medical treatment options that may have prolonged that individual's life during the course of this class.
Some of the different activities that we do are going to relate to some of the topics that you guys see up here. Human physiology, basic biology, and it's also awesome because Since we do have such a high population of sophomores in our course who are concurrently taking biology, they actually have the opportunity to explore some of those topics further in our class or in biology. So we touch on some of the basics and then they go a little bit further, which is awesome, especially since they are a state tested course. We cover obviously a lot of medicine research and the process of credible resources and citations. We tie all of that in with our students. And then also we have just started the process of the experimental design where the students actually get to design their experiments to answer a question. They have to design it from start to finish, make their data table, collect the data, make their analysis and draw their conclusions from start to finish. That's pretty cool.
So some of the skills, again, as already mentioned, that we're trying to get kids to work with in this first class include everything from lab skills and aseptic technique that includes bacterial plating, gram staining, micropipetting, and even gel electrophoresis. Got to be totally honest with you, all 4 of those I didn't see until my freshman and sophomore year in college. And these are freshmen and sophomores in high school getting techniques that you don't see until that stage. So that's incredibly cool. Some of the clinical skills that they get, these kids will end up in this first class learning how to take a blood pressure, both manual and electronically. They'll get to read an EKG, including their own, that they will hook up to try to monitor it off of a computer. They'll work on pedigree analysis. So as Ms. Medlock already said, there's a lot of tie-in with some of our bio class because of the sophomores being enrolled. They'll also do blood work analysis. Some of the software and equipment that they'll get to use in our class, Microsoft Office, but especially with the high school going 1-to-1, we've made a push to really use Google's Sheets as a data analysis package for them too. So we're also trying to bridge that gap between them. The Vernier probes and sensors, data acquisition software that comes with Vernier Logger Pro, and then also a microscope as they kind of learn both in bio and our biomed class at the same time.
Going along with our experimental design that we've mentioned earlier, they really do follow the entire process of what it would be like to be in a real research lab. They get to explore all the different techniques and the skills and the equipment that real professionals get to use. But they really do go through that process of where they have to look at what are they trying to figure out and how do they actually find that answer. We actually take a big step back as the teacher. We are more as a facilitator than a teacher instruction. This is completely project-based and student inquiry at its finest. Not only do they learn the different scientific skills, but they're also learning some of those professional skills along the way too. They are constantly working in groups and they're collaborating, they're communicating. They have to be able to actually communicate with one another and talk to each other. And it's really fun to watch this group of students that just interact with each other, that are so comfortable with them already, and it's only the 5th week of school. They're really working on their problem solving and critical thinking skills, decision making on how they're setting up their procedures and the different conclusion questions and how to actually connect it to the real world application that they are trying to figure out. Go ahead.
So this one's fun to explain. So there are definitely signs on the window that make it abundantly clear this is not a real crime scene, so we didn't freak anybody out when they walked past. But this is really where the class started, is we started with a little bit the week before of just introduction to the class format, setting some of the binders and their Google stuff up. But realistically, this starts with Anna Garcia, who is the individual that starts the class for all PBS students. And we go from there, analyzing the crime scene. So this is the actual crime scene that we set up that's in the display case. So again, I encourage any of you, if you haven't seen it, to take a look at it. It's pretty cool.
We had a lot of fun setting it up.
Yep. This was a cool experience. There was a number of kids that even walked past this and they knew, they were just like, I don't want to see it until class. Like they just put it up, that they wanted to wait for the rest of the group before we all went down together.
The idea behind PBS for our course is we do follow Anna Garcia, who is our person that we find at the crime scene. They start off with a little bit of the CSI of learning about fingerprinting and blood typing and shoe prints, hair samples, and also finding the identity of an unknown substance. Once we get past the actual CSI portion, we will further investigate different topics that include diabetes, sickle cell, heart disease, infectious disease, and eventually through the concept of learning how to read the autopsy reports and the medical history documents and the information they learn in each unit, they will find out at the very end of the course, how does Anna Garcia actually die? So some of the other slides that we included in here were just some of the different things that we have done so far in class. This right here, this is going to be more of the crime scene, but this is when the students actually got to come down and check it out. Officer Wessner was awesome, and he came and talked to all of our students and provided his background information with our students about how to sketch the crime scene, the observations, even if it's so simple, to still write it down, even if they don't think it's significant, to still write it down, and the importance behind that. So this is just some of the different things that our kids were doing with the crime scene.
So again, a couple of crime scene pictures on the left. The pictures more to the right represent our first kind of introduction to the evidence. So this is an evidence lab where the students are measuring some of, the class starts with finding some unmarked white pills that were in the crime scene. So they're simulated, let me be clear on that one, that what the kids are testing for are different chemical compounds. So you can see them gloved up, goggles on, and they're going to town about trying to identify what was found at the crime scene.
Another one that we took a look at the end of last week was also trying to find the time of death. So this was just a couple other things that they looked at here, and how ambient temperatures are actually going to affect the body temperature when they find the body at the crime scene. And then a little bit from actually what we did today is we did some blood spatter analysis. So they investigated the blood that was found at the crime scene. This was to just get a general idea of how height and the blood spatter are connected. And then tomorrow they're actually going to evaluate the crime scene blood spatter to find out at what height did the blood fall in the actual crime scene.
So one of the things with a course like this that I know Project Lead the Way is very big on, and I think with the district initiative going forward, inquiry-based education, to try to get kids more hands-on experience in a science class and give them more of an idea of what a science lab actually is like. This class is a great introduction to it. They're learning skills not only in that, but some of the other soft skills that I think are incredibly valuable by the time they get ready to graduate. Group working skills, lab report writing, presentation skills, communication. At the beginning of the year, we tell the kids, don't necessarily treat yourself as an independent individual lab worker. You are a group of 20-some colleagues working together to try to solve a mystery. And I think that's at the heart of this class, is really them working together. We can both testify as much as we want on how great this class is. As adults, I think all of us kind of realize how important it is for classes like these to exist. But I got to be completely honest, realistically, the thing that is making this class so incredibly important and means so much to us, them. They are the ones that are making this incredibly fun and enjoying it. So we're going to have them come down and just tell you a little bit just of what their impressions are of the class, rather than just hear it from us. So if you guys want to come down.
Okay. As a student that takes this class, I would just like to say it's a very enjoyable course. It's something that, for the kids that are interested in doing something with biomed after high school, is really helpful, and it's something that everybody that takes the course is interested in. Like, most of the students that take it just love the course. It's their favorite class. It's something to look forward in the day, and I think that's very important, to have a class that you want to go to. Like, a lot of classes you're going and, I mean, half the time you're like sleeping, or, you know what I'm saying, not paying attention. Sometimes, I'm just saying. But like this class, you want to learn. Like, you want to know what's going on. Like, it's an interesting course. It's something that I think everybody should have the opportunity to take and learn about.
Okay, so that was Rachel Smith. She's a sophomore. I'm Megan Heath. I'm also a sophomore. So the thing I love about this class is, like, you'll want to ask questions. So, like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone up to Dr. Bratner and I've been like, so how do I do this, or like something, and he makes me go back, and yes, it's frustrating and it's annoying, and I like want the answer because I want to get going, but he makes me go and look back at all the details and like figure it out for myself, which like is like at the end of the day it's like a prize almost, because you're working. And then in like a lot of classes it feels as if like if I were to go up to a teacher and ask them for the answer, they'd they'd help me. Meanwhile, he's making me like kind of think on my own and like work my way to the answer. And then I have this class 12th period, so everybody knows 12th period, you want to go home, you want to get out of school. Like, this class really makes you want to, like, continue school. So I, like, come in and I'm so excited to get going. Like, the blood splatter analysis, today we did it, and I was so excited to do it and, like, finally get into it, because we've been doing the labs. We had to come up with our own procedure and our own stuff, and, like, it was just exciting. But thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexis Metz. I'm a sophomore in Dr. B's class. And so before I took this, like last year we were looking at courses to take, and I went across the biomedical. I immediately wanted to take it after I read the description about it. Now, I knew it was like a new class going in, and I just couldn't wait. I love going to the class. Again, I have it with Megan and Rachel, and we have a 12th period, so usually I do want to get out of school, but I love that class. I always look forward to it. It's probably my favorite one. I am a really hands-on learner, and so I love like looking at the crime investigation or doing the blood spatter analysis that we just did. It's just a really good class. I would really recommend it to anyone who wants to take it next year, and like if we do continue these different types of classes, I would definitely recommend them to anyone who I talk about biomedical with. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Aaron Swihart. I'm a freshman, and I take biomed science with Dr. B. I really like it because at the beginning of the period, Dr. B will explain the lab and everything, and then the rest of the period we're just on our own. Like with your group, you find different like questions. Like you'll have a question at the beginning, and you'll have to answer that question at the end. Like in the blood splatter analysis, you'll see when you'll get a question as if how the blood splatter at the actual investigation crime scene, like how big that was, and then you'll test it, and then you'll match that up, and then it's really cool. Thank you.
So one of the questions I know that we have both been asked, and it's something, I mean, it's totally worth bringing up. I know it's week 5. Every time that we bring something up, it's a sequence, there's a series of courses in Project Lead the Way's biomedical sciences. It starts with Principles of Biomedical Science, goes on to Human Body Systems, and there's 2 others later. And I know I've brought this up a couple of times the 12th period that I keep saying, you know, if we offer HBS, and I am adequately paused every moment that we say, if we offer Human Body Systems, normally by Megan, that she'll give me a look and she'll say, when? And I'll be like, when we offer it next year, and she's like, better, and then I can continue. So the excitement level is there with the kids in a class like this. They really are enjoying it. You obviously heard from them, you've heard from us, that we really do feel that it's a positive experience for our students.
One final thing I just want to mention is because we do get a chance to tie it all into our real world application, we are going to have different guest speakers from the community come in and speak to us as well. So that's something to look forward to. But we also encourage all of you to please come and stop by our classroom. We have open door. We've had people come in and out, check out the crime scene, but come and meet the rest of our kids. This is wonderful students right here, but it's just a small portion from what our class has to offer. So please come check it out, be a part of our experience and a part of theirs, and see what all the big hype is about, because the excitement is there and we're very excited about it. And as you can see from the kids, it's something that we're enjoying and we want to continue with. And yes, so thank you. Thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our teachers and our students for coming out here today, especially our students. All of you, hold your heads high. Aaron, you're brave, because when I was a freshman in high school, there's no way you're getting me up to that podium. So I think it's outstanding that this class meant that much to you, that you wanted to come and support your peers and support your teachers. And this is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about inquiry-based learning and what the future of education here in the Medina city school system. And it's especially close to my heart, being a former science teacher, and human anatomy and physiology was my baby when I taught. So it's an outstanding class, and to the board. These are the types of presentations we're going to have for you in the community throughout this year. In the past, we've done the building presentations. We're trying to get a little bit more down and dirty and give examples of what's actually happening at the ground level.
I just want to take a chance to say thanks again, and I think, we all can't say that enough for the staff and for you guys as students, taking the time, expressing how excited you are and why, and the hands-on approach. And you mentioned something just about the soft skills, and time again, academics brings you about so far, but the interaction, communication, hands-on, that takes you to another level. And I think, it's evidence tonight. You guys are definitely getting there, and I appreciate what you're doing, all of you. Thank you.
I just absolutely love the enthusiasm of the students and the teachers as well. It makes me want to go back to school. I'm going to take you up on your invitation, and I want to stop in and see for sure. Yeah.
You all are very brave coming up here, because I agree with Aaron. There's no way I would have ever addressed a school board when I was a kid. So kudos to you. And I love the collaboration with the police department. That's wonderful. And the question I had was, are other districts following suit, or are we like pioneers doing this?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to answer for you, but there are other districts that are implementing this programming. I think Brunswick actually implemented it just a year or two ago. We're very fortunate in Medina County to have the collaboration with the Career Center. I'm not saying that we couldn't do this without them, because we can and we are in other areas. However, they are helping to share the cost of this initiative. So we're able to gear those monies in other areas. So yeah, we owe a big thanks to the Career Center for their support. And for our second presentation, I'd like to invite Mr. Burkhart up to the front for his annual facilities summer work presentation.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. I'd like to start by thanking our facility committee, which consists of board member Rob Skidmore, board member Doug Eastwood, Jeff Brandon, a community member. We also have Scott Miller on our committee, as well as Jerry Gunner. We meet the first Thursday of every month, and we go over all the capital improvement needs of the district and kind of set priorities for the following year, which we're getting ready to do right now for next summer. So just to take you through, I didn't get pictures of every project because we really had a busy summer with a whole lot of projects, but I tried to capture some of our biggest projects. This first one is the roof at the high school here. This is the area above the rec center. We did about 50,000 square foot of roofing there. It was out of warranty. On the left side, that's the picture of the roof prior, and then the right side is the cap sheet that was installed last week. We're in the process now of installing the metal trim work, which is pretty much finished up, but it came out really well. Another exciting project for us was the Claggett Gymnasium. We completely took the gym floor down to raw wood, resealed it, restriped it, and painted it. And then we also replaced the bleachers in there at the exact same time with the electric powered bleacher system. So they came out really nice. And our maintenance department upgraded the power in there. Since we were in the process of running power to the new bleachers, we went ahead and replaced both service boxes in the gymnasium. This was a little area that our paint crew took care of. They created like a little reading area under the one staircase, and they did a nice job whitewashing the brick. That's kind of the same process we did in the cafeteria last summer and then up in the media center. Another project at Claggett Middle School was to replace a hot water line that was running down the 100 hallway here. The water line had become kind of choked down, and we had some leaks in that area, so we replaced the entire water line, and then while we were at it, we went ahead and put in new drop ceiling and new LED lighting. This is over at Canavan. I think you've seen the image on the left before. That was the roof condition we had above the office, front of the building area. I think that square footage over there was 9,500 square foot of roofing we replaced. So we took that roof down to a roof deck and replaced it. And there we chose to use the white cap coat, or the white cap. But it did come out very nice. I know I'm going to talk to the facilities committee in more detail about tackling more of that building next summer, because that is a building we're having issues with roofing. Paving, we did a lot of paving repair across the district, where we would go in and spot repair some of the worst areas. Some areas we did do full overlay. This is an image of the Fenn Playground before and then after we went through and did the resurfacing in the entire area. Right now we're working with the building principal, who's working with some of the art students at the high school to come in and do some creative striping on the playground. So that's yet to come. This was a project that we, through a shared land use agreement with Montville Township. This is the access drive that goes up into Wade Elementary School. So we shared in the cost of resurfacing that. It was due for resurfacing. We did concrete repair across the district as well. This is an example of what we did between Evolve and Garfield, where we replaced a section of concrete. We also did concrete work here at the high school around the circle where we come in, replaced those joint areas with concrete, and we did the apron at Heritage. We did a little bit of curb repair at Canavan. Floor tile, we did a lot of flooring work this summer. This is, on the left was Garfield Elementary as we were putting the tile down, and then as it was finished. We had 2 art room doors at AI Root Middle School that were in bad condition, so we replaced both those art room doors. And then at Evolve, we replaced the image on the left is a vinyl coated double hung window. We did 16 replacement windows in that building with high efficiency windows. We renovated 2 bathrooms with our own maintenance crew as far as installing new restroom partitions and then new floor tile. And then we also did some carpet work there at Evolve as well. And we also did carpet at the Bowman House, Heritage. I think that took care of all our carpet. This is Bowman. We just finished the roof there last week. We discovered when we started to pull the shingles off quite a bit of damage to the underside of that roof system. So we went through, replaced insulation, put new sheathing down and new shingles. And like I said, they just finished that last Friday. We did have a paint crew this summer. Some of our college students were assigned to that task, so they made their way across the district, and they did a really nice job. And I know this image on the right is one of the staircases at Garfield that they really dressed it up nice. So just to recap some of the other notable projects, we did do the Media Center carpet, the Bowman House got carpet. We did replace the kilns, some of the kilns at the AI Root and Medina High School. We replaced the 1 playground door at Canavan. Here at the high school, near the senior commons, we had some masonry issues with the brick, so we removed, I think, 4 or 5 courses of brick, about 120 some linear feet of brick, and replaced it with fresh mortar just to get all that weather tight again, as well as clean up the steel lintel that was in there too. We are in the process of getting the gutter replaced on the rear of Garfield Elementary. We've got water coming in between the gutter system and the soffit, so we're in the process of doing that. And I mentioned our concrete repairs. We've teamed up with the Blake Elementary's PTO to replace their sign out front with the electronic message board. We've talked to the township about it and make sure everything would be okay in that neighborhood, and we're good to proceed with that. The the high school, we had ordered the doors to replace the art room doors, but they came in with the wrong dimensions, so those are being refabricated, and we're going to get those in as soon as they come available. So, any questions about our capital improvement projects?
John, I just want to thank you. Being newer to the committee the last, I think, year or two, we've really appreciated seeing the progress that you've made through the last several years, and the Excel spreadsheet where you keep 5 years of plans out there, and you've done a great job with that and trying to prioritize because there's so many needs. And we can't afford to do all the repairs every year that we have to do, and you schedule them so well, and so we thank you for showing us tonight the funds that were spent for those great projects and trying to maintain our structures. Thanks,
Thank
John.
I just wanted to throw out too that how much I appreciate the principals for their input to you, and when we come to meet with the committee, it's not just the things that John wants to do or Aaron wants to see done, but the building heads are putting their requests out, and like Rob said, there's so much more that could be done, but we make the money go as far as we can every year. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the patience from the principals, but without them telling us what their needs are, you know, some of those things just wouldn't happen. So
Right.
I appreciate all of you.
And John, I think too, paying attention to some of the smaller, inexpensive things that just make the kids enjoy the building better, even from the new paint jobs to the refurbished or the remodeled bathrooms and stuff. That does make a huge difference.
Yeah,
It does.
we're fortunate to have some really skilled maintenance people that we can, and then our college crew, they do an amazing job too, so it's really thanks to them.
Thank you again. And I know I can speak for all of us that we really look forward to seeing the summary because we can see everybody out at the different buildings over the summer. And I know I really look forward to seeing the pictures and the finished product and being out there. So we appreciate that. I do have one follow-up question. You mentioned at Wait, the shared drive.
Yes.
Does that also apply to the parking lot for when the parking lot would need repaved, that cost would be shared with
That
the township?
outer parking lot that's right up against the park is the shared land, and then once you jump into that other parking lot, that's us.
In front of the building?
In front and then the side.
Okay,
Yeah, where the bus loop is.
Yep.
That's us.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chambers.
Thank you. Now, I'm not as exciting as the PBIS and all that. I just have monotone here, so I will tell you the bank balance decreased by roughly $3.3 million in August to $89.12 million. It's a $1.9 million below last August at this time. General fund revenues were above last August by $1.3 million. Property tax and other funding sources account for the increase. More money from advances of real property and the Medicare settlement still are the reasons for the majority of the increase. The general fund expenditures were above last July by nearly $1 million. Personal services, benefits, purchase services, and capital outlay contributed to the increase. And that's all part of the strategic plan still. The sales tax fund balance is down $3.3 million. The district spent approximately $434,000 in August. The largest portion was on paving and gym seating replacement at Claggett. The paving was district-wide paving, not at Claggett. The rec center capital fund balance is down. It's in the negative right now, and the reason for the negative is the city just passed the appropriations for the purchase order to be spent. We received information from Mike Wright today that we will have a check here, or the check will be cut tomorrow. So that should be back up. The district has received $168,000 in investment income for August. The total collected for the current year is approximately $50,000 above last year at this time. And the general fund true days cash estimate is about 286 days. Questions? Okay, I'd like to talk about the permanent appropriations. Did you have a question? Okay. Permanent appropriations. if you look at the bottom line there, we have a total of $116,900,000 going out for this year. Now, these are only estimates on the part of not only myself, but all the principals and all their department heads for the 018, 200, and 300 funds. So the important funds that you want to look at are the general fund, the debt service fund. We also have our employee benefits self-insurance fund, our emergency levy fund. We have a new student wellness and success fund, which is funded through the state budget. And then, of course, we have our federal funds, which are our 500 funds. General fund is up by $2.6 million. Large portion of this could be stated away as being personal services and, hold on one second. There was a second page. Oh, here we go. Personal services and benefits, $2 million in personal services, $500,000 in benefits. Then our emergency levy is only up by $10,000, but we're looking at moving more monies from the general fund into the emergency levy. The reason for this is our general fund balance is dropping, our emergency fund balance is going up. So with what was passed here in 2013, we'd like to get that even with what it should be spending out. And that way, both of them will be spending down proportionately as compared to where they are now. So over the next few months, you may see us moving monies, increasing emergency levy appropriations, decreasing general fund appropriations. Our debt service is down by $1.6 million. The major portion or major reason for this is that we paid off our 1992 bond here last year, and the other portion is obviously paid off principal and interest last year that reduces our debt for remaining years. Let's see, what else were we talking about? Employee self-insurance. You could see we're down by nearly $1 million. This was a big guess on all of our parts because we are self-insured, and being self-insured, we basically pay our own claims. And so last year we were hit hard, and so we're looking at sort of a rebound this year. That's all. But we'll come to April, May, and we'll probably, verify it again and see if we need to come back. That's all. Let's see. Oh, yes, our student wellness and success. We haven't gotten hard figures on this from the state. The last thing we got was back in July, and so this is the estimate they gave us in July, so we're sticking with that estimate. These monies have to be spent on specific items, and I know Dr. Kwolek is looking at what we could spend it on, and I just wanted to get the appropriations there so we could get ready and go when she's ready. And then, of course, we have our federal funds. Our federal funds are going to be changing. I keep saying it every year. We'll have this appropriation till around January, February, and then the feds are going to be moving monies around based on spending that is occurring throughout the state. And so you'll be seeing appropriations being revisited again. Questions? Thank you.
Next up is board communications. Anybody have anything to share?
I do. Mr. Ross, it's been a busy week, and it'll continue to be for all of the board members. Last Friday, Mr. Ross and I attended the Fenn Playground rededication and honored Mr. Knight. It was definitely taking a walk back in time for me. I remembered how many playground duty hours and volunteers I organized over there, and the bittersweetness of it, really, because my son is now a junior. And I know that the days and the weeks go by slow, but the years go by fast. I want to give a special shout out and a thank you to Meyer Design. They are a playground equipment and designer located on North High Street in Akron. The partnership between Meyer Design for the design and the materials and the awesome Fenn families who provided the labor, the man hours, what a wonderful makeover it is. I'm just so excited for the kids. And I can't thank them all enough for what they were able to accomplish in such a short period of time. When you think about it, it was like 2 weeks, I think. From Fenn, we went to the high school for Spirit Night, and watching the kindergartners walking the track was again another bittersweet memory, remembering when my son did that. And Rob Skidmore and I were joking that the year they graduate, hopefully is the year we're going to retire. That will be retiring. Was it 2032, I think, or 2033, something? This week brought about curriculum committee, and I believe Mrs. Parkhurst will recap that. Wednesday, we'll be attending the business advisory committee, which includes the Chamber of Commerce and the economic development folks, to update them on what our college and career planning efforts are focusing on. From then, we head to Partnership Council, where the mayor and his department heads will be updating on what they're doing. The PTO presidents, they provide updates on their buildings, and then Aaron follows up with the district updates. And Mr. Ross and I believe we then have Finance Committee at 6 o'clock that night. And then I'll head to the library for the Science Olympiad organizational meeting. Hopefully I encourage any students and parents who have an interest in anything sciencey, especially with this whole biomedical course now, to come up and check it out. Thanks.
That's a tough act to follow. I'm just here to say that I believe this is homecoming week. There's a lot of excitement going on in the district. A lot of activities both in the district and with alumni, so should be prove to be a really good week. And as well, last weekend there was a lot going on, and we had a chance. There was a band show Medina puts on their 23rd annual. It was exciting to see over 1,100 kids perform together and without practice. And it was just they said it's not rehearsed, so nobody's promising what it's going to sound like, but it sounded great and it sounded loud, and those kids just thrive on helping one another. So I was shout out to the band parents, shout out to our band as a host. They did fantastic, and it was a good night for Medina, and a good effort at the next stadium over, as I understood.
Well, I guess that's my lead-in. I thank you, Mr. Eastwood. I got to be at the girls' soccer game that same night where they played Walsh, and the amazing part, they had I think about 7 or 8 of the girls that came back that were part of the team from 2009 that won state, and so they were there and they announced them all, and they all are very active in their careers and sounded very successful. All of them did. So it was a definite advertisement for the district and the great work they've done. And I've been to, I think, one of the boys soccer games this year, and again we enjoyed Spirit Night. It was a lot of fun with the Wadsworth crowd coming out and watching the kindergartners and Mr. Chambers. We even realized that Mr. Chambers actually knows how to dance as well as grill. So, and he was on TV for
Sorry,
Fox 8
that is a
News.
fallacy. I do not know
Yeah.
how to do.
So he made Fox 8 that night, and he got to announce welcome to Medina, and he did a great job. So maybe your agent needs to work on your contract for that. So, okay. So thank you.
As Mrs. Pavlik mentioned, the curriculum committee met earlier today, and we received an update on SOAR, similar to what Mr. Sable presented at the board meeting this evening, as well as updates for the Focus 3 training that's going to be continuing. Just a couple of other items coming up. Parent Ed Camp, September 25th, and I believe there's information in the principal newsletters about that in the Be Informed. Made in Medina County is October 4th, and we do have some high school students that will be attending that and seeing what products and great things are being made right here in their own backyard. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is the financial aid FAFSA night, which is October 15th. I believe more information about that can be found on the website.
Thank you. Thank you. I concur with everything that everybody said. I do want to thank, last weekend was a lot of fun. There's a lot going on. And I think Amy Busby really needs to get a huge round of applause because she put that tailgate together. And that, I don't know somebody came up to me and said, how long have we been doing that? Because they were having a blast. And we've been doing that for several years. 13 years, so apparently that was their first time. But they loved it. And that's just a testament to all the hard work you put into Spirit Night and all that. And I know you have a lot going on for this week as well, as Doug mentioned, with homecoming. So thank you for all you do. From Craig's ceremony honoring Mr. Knight across the street to the tailgate. Yeah, just a lot going on. And Mr. Sable, I know you had a long day. You know, I saw you at halftime figuring out how we're going to finish that game. So,
And boy, did we finish it the right way.
We did, yes. We did, yeah. And again, a lot of, I know you had a long day, so thank you for that, and then a lot of student athlete, big wins this weekend. And the last thing I want to shout out to is probably the unsung heroes. I think our facility committee works really hard. Thanks, Rob and Doug and John, because I know over the summer you guys have, it's kind of like crunch time between, you have a couple months to put in all those projects. And I mean, the amount of work that you do across, I don't know, you said how many, we have 1 million square feet, something like that. That's amazing. So thank you for hustling throughout every summer, getting the facilities updated. I appreciate everything you're doing. So that's all I got. Thank you, everyone. So next up are Mr. Chambers and action items.
Yes, if it pleases the board, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the August 2019 Treasurers Report. Item number 2, resolution letter of arrangement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution of arrangement between the local government services of the Office of the Auditor of State and the Medina City School District to conduct an audit of the Medina City School finances for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. This is an annual arrangement that we have because we have to pay our auditors to come in and see if we're doing things the right way. And it is a $2,000+ savings from last year, so I just wanted to put that out there. Resolution number 3, resolution approval of the fiscal year 2019-2020 permanent appropriations. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution approval of the 2019-20 permanent appropriations.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's action items.
I'll second.
Is there any board discussion on the treasurer's action items?
Do they give you a discount after doing it year after year after year in the same location?
We can't charge them anything for them sitting outside our offices, I'm sorry to say.
Anybody else? Any community comment on the treasurer's action items? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Russ.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Sable?
First up, we have donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to Medina City Schools. There is one donation in particular here I would like to point out, and that's the donation of the playground equipment of well over $76,000. The commitment to the volunteers, as Mrs. Pavlik had mentioned, this figure is actually quite a bit larger. Because they took on, they meaning the parents, took on a lot of the expense themselves through the donation of their work, rather than have somebody else construct that for them. Number 2 is for a declaration of mutual easements and cooperation agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the declaration of mutual easements and cooperation agreement between the Medina City School District and the City of Medina, pending approval of updates from City Council restricting access during school hours for the safety and security of students and staff. I do want to point out that the easement that is attached here is not a final copy. A final copy is actually in the process of being created. Once that final copy is completed, the City Council, who has already voted on this item, will be re-voting. And what's being adjusted within that document is adding some language allowing the district more flexibility in terms of the monitoring and restricting of access to that trail during school hours. I anticipate that there will be a sign posted by the trail indicating that the trail is under restricted hours during the school day. And again, that's for increasing the safety. I would like to thank Ron and Rob for their attention to that, especially Rob, because I know he put in some of the work in making sure that our students are safe. Number 3, this is also related to the Northrop Trail. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to reject all bids opened on August 16, 2019 for the Northrop Trail Connector Project and award a contract based on the rebid opened on September 13, 2019 for the Northrop Trail Connector Project to Vismeg Landscape in the amount of $273,000. I do want to point out here that we had the rejection of a bid because when we originally opened the bids, we only received one bid, and it was very high compared to what our projected costs were for the project. Fortunately, when it was rebid, we received 3 bids at a much more competitive rate. Number 4 is the second reading of several policies that were presented at the last regular meeting. It is recommended that the Board of Education review for the second time with possible adoption the following revised policies. And these are all tobacco use policies, and we're just trying to shore those up. Number 5 is an agreement for athletic trainer services. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between Medina Hospital and the Medina City School District to provide the sports medicine and athletic training services for Medina High School effective August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2020. This agreement shall automatically renew for up to 4 additional 12-month terms, each a renewal of term, unless and until terminated. I do want to point out that we made some updates to this agreement. We added language to ensure that all of our students participating in athletic programming, whether it's club or sport, have the opportunity to receive athletic training services. In addition to that, this document is listed as confidential by the Cleveland Clinic, not by us. So we added language just identifying that the clinic is aware that this is a document open for public request, as we have it listed here publicly. And then the third piece, I'm losing my mind now. The advertising, that's it. Thank you. The third piece that we made an adjustment for is with this agreement, we're doing an exchange of services essentially with the Cleveland Clinic, which is allowing them to advertise at our sports venues. And we had a statement included within this contract stating that we can reevaluate the costs of those advertising services on an annual basis to ensure it's fair market value. And number 6, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement between the Medina City School District and Medina Hospital for its life support team to provide standby coverage for the 2019 Cross Country Festival to be held on October 5th, 2019, and for the OHSAA Cross Country District meet on October 19th, 2019. The board did recently approve a contract for life support services for the district. This is separate because there's life support services needed above and beyond with the amount of students we're going to be having over at Canavan competing. And we want to ensure that services are in place for student safety. Number 7 is an amended service agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the amended service agreement, and this is with LACA. LACA is the computer consortium that has provided us with computer services over the course of the last 7 years or so. I want to point out that we are actually transitioning away from LACA and moving over to NeoNet. All of our services at this point have been moved over to NeoNet with the exception of our internet services, and that's because we were obligated to complete the final year of that contract with LACA. As you know, we've gone one-to-one here at the high school with the Chromebooks. Our technology department did an outstanding job updating all of our district services to make that possible. Now that we have 2,500 devices on at once in the high school, it became very clear that we need to increase our bandwidth. So this contract, which is an increase of approximately $10,000, increases our bandwidth for the remainder of the school year. This is something that is not going to be an issue once we transition to NeoNet, and it's my understanding from talking to Ryan that once we transition to NeoNet next year for our internet, it's going to be even faster than what we're upgrading it to. So we're going to be ready for our middle schoolers with the next phase of the one-to-one. Number 8 is another service agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement for the 1920 school year, and this is for the Focus 3 leadership training that Mrs. Parkhurst spoke about tonight. This is a training program that we began last school year. There was definitely a need to provide more guidance and professional development with leadership, not only for all of our administrators, and all of our administrators in the district are participating in this, but also for our teacher leaders. As you all know, we made the transition to put more teachers in leadership roles, which is part of my philosophy. I think it's important that we've got decision makers from the ground up, but we got to make sure that our people have the right skills to be able to do that and make it happen. So this is a continuation of the training that we started last year. Number 9, service agreements. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements for the 1920 school year. All of these are for special education services per student's IEPs. These are all organizations and types of services that the district has contracted with in the past. And again, it's all based off of what the students' needs and requirements are. And last but not least is personnel, and I recommend to the Board of Education that you approve the following recommendations for personnel hires, retires, movements, etc., pending completion of all background checks and documentation with our Human Resources Department. The first one I want to point out is a retirement. And seems strange. I think this is our second retirement this early in the year, which doesn't typically happen. This retirement is for Don Harrington. Don's retiring with 30 years of service. 28 years have been with Medina. Don was hired in 1991 at Garfield Elementary and worked at Garfield teaching 5th grade for 22 years. Most recently, Don has taught 5th grade at Heritage for the last 6 years. We wish Dawn all the best in retirement and thank her for many years of service to the Medina City Schools. I do want to point out that Dawn did not start this school year. She was on a leave of absence, so this is not going to impact our students. We've actually had another teacher working in that classroom. And the big news for tonight, I want to recommend, after a lengthy search, a new associate principal for Claggett. This is not a new position. This is replacing Shannon Conley, who is the former associate principal there. We released her from her contract literally days before school started because she got an opportunity to be a head principal at Buckeye Middle School. This interview process has had great depth to it. We actually went through a whole process. We're not happy with the candidates, and Mr. Warzencroft contacted me and said, I know we've gone through 2 rounds of interviews and we've brought all these people in, but I want to make sure we've got the best person for our building and our kids. Well, at that point, we redid our game plan. We looked at some additional applicants, and we all reached out to some of our connections. I know I sent an email out to all the superintendents in Summit and Medina County, looking for potential candidates. In addition, I had a backup plan of a retired superintendent, former principal, who is willing to come in and be a long-term sub for us. So that's how much we want to make sure we're putting the right people into our positions. Fortunately, Jessica Boyton applied for the position. She has been an assistant principal with Brunswick City Schools at one of their middle schools for the past 6 years. This is her 7th year there. She's also, and I'm going to ask for everybody not to hold this against her, but she's been spent her entire career at Brunswick. So I'm thrilled to see that she's wearing green with pride here at our board meeting tonight. Very fortunate find. During her interview, her responses to questions, her focus on many of the things that are priorities for us in our district were spot on. And maybe one of the most important pieces is the priority she places on kids and on being a member of a team, which is what we're all about here. When I talked earlier about leadership from the ground up, we really try and take a collaborative approach as much as we can when we're making decisions, because several heads are much better than one, and we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions. And I was so impressed by her in that interview that I actually offered her the position before she even left the interview, and we had a chance to discuss as a team. And I can tell you, and I used to handle HR for 8 years in my previous district, I can count on one hand the amount of times that I had done something like that. And I have a lot of respect for our interview team who filled me in before she came in and said, I think she's definitely the one. I'm excited for her to get started. The reason why Brunswick is even willing to let her go, and I did talk to her current superintendent today, is because, as I think you may all know, they're building a new middle school and they're consolidating 3 middle schools down to 1. So they're looking at a potential personnel issue at the end of this year with staffing, where they're going to have to reduce in some positions, including with their assistant principal and principal positions at the middle school level. They have a similar philosophy to what we do, where we don't want to hold people back and we don't want to put people in a bad position. And I can tell you that their superintendent told me today that she's not necessarily one of the people they would have liked to have seen gone. But with not knowing where things are heading with the building, they couldn't make a commitment to her, and it wouldn't be fair to the other administrators in the district to do that. And they thought that this was just an outstanding opportunity for her. So I want to welcome you to Medina City Schools. I also want to welcome your husband, Dr. Boyton, to Medina City Schools as well. Because I know what it's like being an associate principal and any kind of administrative position where your family really becomes a part of what you do, because that's the kind of business that we're in. So thank you, and hopefully congratulations very soon.
I'd like to make a motion to accept these action items.
I'll second.
Any board discussion? I just want to thank Mr. Skidmore for the work on the easement. That was a great catch. Your recommendation made sense, and our students and staff are going to be much safer. Thank you.
Well, and it was because of your question about safety, Mr. Ross, so thank you. I just wanted to talk real quick about the trail. I'm glad we're getting that done. I know I feel bad for Principal Halleck up there. I know it's been probably, 5.5 years since we could have approved it. And I was part of the board that was a brand new board at that point. And I forget if that was with 3 members or 5 members at that point. It might have been, that was with 4. Okay, we had 5. And, there's, we wanted to make sure that we looked at several things. A, yes, it's gone up in cost since then. So that's again, a negative. But B, I think there's been some improvements to the trail with efficiencies with it. We've looked at lighting with it. I know as a committee, we also looked at making sure that it was not just wood, that it was Trex for maintenance issues. There's been a lot of discussion about snow removal. And then this agreement with the city that I'm sure would have been part of the other. And so there's a loss there with that. But we didn't have the chance at that point to have seen the priorities. And I think we wanted to make sure that we looked at the priorities again at that point and did it. And at this point, I think there's a chance that we can get reimbursed for some of the cost of the trail this time. So in spite of the fact that I was a no with the trail a couple years ago, I'm definitely a yes. And it's been proved to us through the last several years that there's quite the need over there. And I know we've talked about busing of cars to other locations and things like that. And those things, Mrs. Halleck was always good about the school working to do all those things and to schedule during off times. But if they have parent-teacher nights and things like that, this additional parking overflow is definitely needed. So we don't look at spending a couple hundred, almost 300,000 lightly. We always look at things carefully. But there was probably 1,000 hours thinking about this, unfortunately. But we're glad that it's going to happen now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skidmore. Anybody else? Any community discussion on the superintendent's action items? Seeing none, Mr. Chambers.
See, Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Thank you.
Public communication. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Any members from the community wishing to address this board at this time? Seeing none. I want to make a motion that the board goes into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official.
I'll second.
Mr. Chambers.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Eastwood.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. No action will be taken after the executive session, and go Browns.